New bikes coming, and we're going to talk about them. Okay? Let's get started. It's time to put the golf clubs away. You know it. Every day, it's the same old thing. Day in and day out. Deep down, you're not happy. And drugs, booze, and weed ain't gonna do it either. However, if you could take that step and pull the trigger on your very first motorcycle, you will experience things that will stay with you forever. Life is meant for living, not staying on our mobile devices all day. It's time to get perspective. It's time to come back from the weekend refreshed, recharged, and refocused. The ones around you will notice there's something different about you. Seeing new things and going different places does something to somebody. It changes them from the inside out. And the sights that you will see, well, those are for you to keep. I'm Bermcannon, and in the next videos, join me as I guide new riders like you into... Well, I was supposed to play the other promo, but whatever. Hey everybody, hope everybody's having a good day. This is actually, I got to start doing some podcasts since I set this up. And this is going to kind of be the first one. And we're going to talk about a couple different things so you can bail, come back later, because I'm going to put this on my podcast list. So it's going to be kind of sporadic because I'm trying to set some things up here, and I'm sure you guys can appreciate kind of the work that goes into these things. But I see a couple of you guys are watching. So let me get kind of set up here and first talk about all these bikes that started coming out yesterday. And it's kind of like everybody's just like, hey, look what we got coming out. Where the fact is, let's see here. Yeah, Suzuki has something coming, and then KTM has something coming. So the Suzuki 2020 Suzuki V-Strom 650XT Adventure. Okay, so, or no, is it the V-Strom 650XT? They kind of look the same bike, and pretty much the first at first glance it's pretty much a street bike. I mean, I don't see that thing handling much off-road at all. And the comments already online with Instagram, it's a lot of people think it's ugly, but you guys can let me know on that. So let me kind of break it down for you guys on kind of why these things were announced yesterday. But so in the old days, there was two major motorcycle trade shows that would take place. And unfortunately, here in the U.S., there's no longer one. And I don't, we can talk about that too, but back in the day, it was called the Indy Show, and it took place in, dang it, I can't even remember. I think it was in November? Yeah, no, October, November? Jeez, I can't even remember that. Anyways, I went for years. I can't think of the freaking month that thing was in. In 2003, 2004, I started going, and that was pretty much at the pinnacle of the motorcycle industry, motorsport industry, actually. There was a couple thousand exhibitors at that time. And I remember just walking, it would take you actually like 3 days to walk. And it was downtown Indianapolis before they built that big Colt Stadium that's there now. So we would go, and it was really cool because back then everybody was there. It was the place to be when you had motorcycle stuff. And I can't remember if all the motorcycle manufacturers actually went to that, but I do remember some would show up with prototypes and new stuff that's coming out. And it was the cool thing to do. You know, you go there, sell all your new gear, all your new prototype stuff, and, you know, excuse me while I try to fix this now. There we go. It was the thing to do, and you brought all your new products for the year, and you would show them off. And I was going with LA Sleeve at the time, and that's kind of like what we would do is go there, and you know. But unfortunately, the economy started to kind of downturn around 2008, and it was actually a really bad time because the bad economy eventually ruined the shows for the United States. And even this past year, companies buy these shows and move on and move it to somewhere else, new city. But the United States never rebounded. We never got our show back. And, you know, it's kind of a tough thing for the United States here in the U.S. to not have a motorcycle show like what's going on in Milan right now. Excuse me. So right now in Milan, there's a huge show, and it's been going on for years. And I have Alex, my buddy Alex, is over there right now, and he's kind of taking some pictures. And that one is gigantic. And I actually got to go there a couple years ago and experience that show. And that show was incredible. I mean, all different languages, the entire world goes to that show. And why that show hasn't has gone down in popularity, I don't know why, but in the United States, the economy killed ours, social media killed ours, and then you could think the good old-fashioned greed. Companies complained, you know, Troy Lee complained back in the day of just the unions raping us to bring in our product. And then, you know, you couldn't even go to the door. You had to get union guys to move your stuff into the convention hall. And it was just getting ridiculous. I remember, and still to this day, it probably is the same, but even to run electrical to your booth was a couple $1,000s. And for companies that aren't as big, that just was just dumb, and it just made no sense. So, you know, here we are, and Milan has the only motorcycle show, and they all go there now. And even the one that happened this past year in Ohio or something, it used to be in Florida. It's just not working, you know, and so we can talk for hours about why it's never going to work here. I mean, even some people say move it to Vegas, but then there's like logistics with dealers coming to that show in Vegas and whatever. Whatever. It's like we lost it, and I don't think it'll ever come back here in the United States. That's my opinion. So Suzuki unveiled this new adventure bike that, again, people are kind of making fun of, this V-Strom 650XT adventure. And here's my thoughts. Right off the bat, it's a street bike. There's really nothing. I just don't, you know, I almost, from a manufacturing standpoint, I think these manufacturers now are going, hey, we have the Katana. Let's just take some fairings off and put some, brackets to put some cases on it, and people can go ride them and go on dirt roads. And pretty much this is what this 650 XT Adventure looks like. It looks like it can handle dirt roads with maybe pebbles that are no bigger than 2 inches. It looks very heavy, but the cost is kind of up there too. I mean, it's I'm showing. What do we got here? Yeah, the Adventure's $10,399. So it's like, I don't know compared to all the other bikes where that is going to sit, but Suzuki's always kind of been the last in the pack to be. They've never been progressive, even from my years in the industry and just know on how they do things, is like they wait for everybody to come up with all the new ideas, and then they kind of pick the middle ground and, okay, we're just going to shoot here in the middle, and like their RM450 was pretty much a copy of Honda's best-selling years, which was like 06 to 09, the Sierra 450. They pretty much just tried to bang that, and then they just made that. So Suzuki's never been a front runner, and looking at this bike, it's kind of the same thing. However, in this, I still see that they don't even call that like a dual sport type thing, which is cool. It's not like another company I know that they'll start saying it's for off-road and all this other stuff when it's not. So I commend them on that. But under their dual sport category, they're talking about the famous, and this is almost as iconic as the XR650. It's their DRZ 400. And I've actually been wanting just to make a couple videos with this bike, because there's thousands and thousands of these bikes all over the world, and guys are riding these things, and they're amazing motorcycles for beginners, and they're proven, so anyways, yeah, that's kind of like the cool thing about those things is they haven't changed it, because they know that works. Let's see here. Oh, they have like a DRZ 400. That's a super motard edition, which is, that's cool too, I guess. And of course they got the Boulevard, and they got their street stuff. Then another bike that came out yesterday was let me see if I can put this up here. The KTM, they came out with a 390. Let's see here. How do we do a screen share? Here we go. Okay. So here's the 390, and this is on Cycle News over there. Jesse Ziegler. So yeah, again, I mean, look at that. That's pretty much a street bike. And again, I haven't ridden these yet. I haven't ridden the 790, but that looks pretty low to the ground, and it looks like it will take, canyon roads better than it'll take whoops. Adventure bike. Let's see what some of the words they use here. they're saying its adventure really shines in the addition of the fully adjustable WP upside down fork, which was originally developed for enduro riding. Enduro. Okay, and enduro nowadays means it does all kinds of things and it does whatever, but except for sand and West Coast whoops. Let's see here. It has 177 millimeters of travel and looks suitable for long distance rides and rough terrain. Yeah, I don't know. I'm looking just the way this thing's sitting. It's just sitting real low. And it doesn't have a lot of clearance right here. Braking. Don't really care about that as long as I can turn off the ABS if it has it. Yeah, off-road ABS. Cornering ABS. However, I like the price tag. And the price tag is $61.99, which is kind of cool. And that's affordable. I'm wondering if the suspension can be redone and make it more beefy. Now, what do you guys think of this? This headlight, I've seen a lot of guys talk about that headlight being very obtrusive, as well as when I look at that headlight, especially with the 790 as well, is I haven't seen this thing up front, and this is like totally, I'm shooting from the hip. So if you guys have this thing or you've seen one, you can correct me, but I bet after 1,000 miles of riding, that whole unit on the front, that headlight, that dashboard is gonna shake, or it just doesn't look like it's fully secured. And then the other thing I see, taking that thing completely off, I see a Duke, like just a full-on street bike. So yeah, Enduro Grip. Yeah, it's a pity they never furthered and developed the DR6 600 or 650. Yeah, I agree with that. I'm gonna do another podcast on my crystal ball of how the motorcycle industry will continue to shrink. I see that 20 years from now, there's probably only going to be a couple models, and they'll eventually phase out a lot of motorcycles, and we're going to probably just be riding electric bikes, but I'll save that for another podcast. It comes in two colors too. It's this orange and white, it looks like. Oh, and then black. Yeah, well, it's the same color. So dark orange and black, and then white and orange and gray. So here's another thing I wanted to kind of talk about with KTM is I tried to kind of go look at a couple at my local dealerships, and they don't even have any 790s. And they probably have one. They also, when they don't have any, they usually have one in the back, and it's probably for somebody or they'll have one on the showroom floor to sell them. And then when you go, hey, I want one, they'll go, oh, well, this is our only one, and there's a wait. And from what I've been hearing from people is these 790s, there's just not enough of them in the States. So releasing this 350 or 390, I'm wondering if they can't even fill that, or how many you're going to be able to even get your hands on. So if that's true, this is what makes me believe that eventually, well, a couple things. This shows me that the manufacturers are not building bikes crazy, and the economy in the world is not good. Which also leads me into believing that maybe people ain't buying these adventure bikes like we think people are buying these. Because based on my channel and everybody watching me, people are still buying used XR650s and not buying these $15,000 bikes. And that could be a problem, and this could foreshadow the actual forecast. Is they're releasing all these prototypes. I saw Husqvarna have a prototype out on Instagram, and they're pushing that, and then the Teneri, which hasn't even hit the showroom floors, which is another kind of turning into a laughing stock. I don't know. All that kind of stuff, this pumping, showing the drawings, showing renditions, it could be telling us that these things ain't really selling, or they're just nervous. They don't want to make a bunch of them. Maybe this is going to be downturning. They're just like testing to see how many people are going to put orders in for these things. So, yeah, I don't know. But let's see here. So, by time you guys are listening to this podcast or watching this on YouTube, I started a new series on getting new riders, because there is a lot of people that we all know, and they're all just hanging out. This actually sparked a conversation between me and a friend of mine, because back in 04, between 04 and 08, I had about 20 friends who rode on a consistent basis and raced with me. And then all of a sudden the economy hit, and then boom, they just all got rid of their bikes. They got out of it, and they never returned since that. And it's been already, 10 years. And, here in California, we're suffering a lot. It's just, you guys see the news. Gas is like $4.50 a gallon. Registration for motorcycles is through the roof. Living here in a house, paying taxes, it is insanity. And motorcycling is dead here. And that'll be another podcast where I'd like to get some of my motorcycle industry friends on and talk about, because it used to be it still is. All the companies are here, the test tracks are here, R&D is here, but I'll tell you what's not here is retail consumers riding motorcycles and buying motorcycle products. That is all gone, because less and less, when I put my bike in my truck and I either go out to a track or go ride some trails, I'm seeing less and less people with bikes in the back of their trucks, and it ain't coming back. And you know why it's not coming back? Is because the state is ran by liberals, and we have no money. All our money is going to their agenda-driven taxes and blah, blah, blah. So how about that? So you guys that are living in Arizona, Utah, Florida, on the East Coast, and you guys have lower taxes and lower living expenses, good for you. In fact, I was on YouTube and I actually saw this kid, and what's funny, more of these kids are popping up on YouTube, and they have like thousands of followers, and people are following them because they got like two strokes in the garage. They have 2 4-strokes. One kid had like 7 bikes in his garage, and he had a track on his land. Okay, we can't do that here in California. That is just not. We're done. Like in the 90s and in the early 2000s, we were like the place to be here. And we still are. If you can find land and get your own track in your backyard, or have your own trails, or if you live out in Lancaster or Blythe, Palm Springs, So anyways, back to where I was going was the new rider series. So I've made a bunch of videos that you can share with your friends. And you know, we all have those friends that have tried to get into riding, and either money, golf, their their willingness to do other things besides commit and get a motorcycle and start riding with you. There's a bunch of things out there. So hopefully in these videos we'll kind of get guys to pull that trigger, because I know when they come home from those bars and they come home from that golf game on Saturday, they're like, they got to be getting sick of the same old thing. This is going to be a pain in the ass clearing my throat on these podcasts. So anyways, we're going to dive down that. And I did a bunch of videos on even stuff that I used to do, trying to save money, you know, hawking stuff out of the house, to, you know, selling your wife or girlfriend's exercise bike. And, you know, hopefully that will get guys to actually put money aside and get them kind of pumped up. I know there was nothing in that video that was like groundbreaking, but just to kind of give people a push. I did get a comment from a guy this past weekend that he's like, yeah, you're pushing me along, and I think I'm going to do it. So if I could just get one guy to get out there and start riding. And here's the thing is, you know, I stopped when I stopped racing a couple of years ago. I kind of just stopped riding altogether. But it was, Baja George. He's like, hey, let's go down to Baja. Let's go do that. And I was like, all right. So we went, and I was on that XR400, and it re-sparked the fire. And sometimes we just need that fire to be re-sparked, and here it is. I'm finding a whole new pleasure in going different places on a motorcycle and rediscovering trail riding again, after years of racing and burnout. Riding's fun again because there's no stress, there's no pressure, and I know there's guys out there that used to ride and have given it up for a number of reasons, and if we can get them back on the bikes and get them back out there, that's awesome. So I have that coming up, or that's out now, and then I have a trip now booked. We're gonna be riding out here again, doing a couple more High Sierra Diaries, but this time on back down lower towards Lone Pine, Bishop, and we're gonna do that. So that'll be here in the next couple weeks. Okay, let's see. I got a question here before we move on. Okay, Enduro Grip XR650R. Please check out the SWM 650 Adventure. Chinese manufactured in Italy. Took one for a test ride today. The price seems to be good. ABS brakes and all, Brembo brakes, and good tires. I think I have seen that, Enduro Grip. I have seen that. If somebody gave me one to go ride, I'd try it. I'm not going to full on hate on it, but Chinese stuff in my past history has failed. But I'm always open-minded to try it again and again because they're always fixing stuff and making things better. But again, some people don't have the money to go out and buy a $15,000 adventure bike. So I'll have to hook up with them and see if I can get one to ride and try, because the one thing that, with those is like being in the middle of nowhere and then finding out that your brake, we'll just say your brake pads are gone on the first trip because the brake pads were manufactured in China and they cost 50 cents to make, but I'll check them out. So here's a couple things I wanted to talk about as well that's coming up. Next week I'm going to be doing some videos on why, and it's going to be a part of the new rider series, and why you should start racing. And I'm going to do another video on why you shouldn't race. And then I'm going to do a podcast all about those, but in depth. And I'll put that on the podcast so you guys can have like an hour of me talking about the certain things of why you should do a couple races and try it, and then why you shouldn't. So, all right. So that's 30 minutes. We will talk to you guys later. I'm going to put this up as soon as I get my podcast page up. And I have some guests coming up here in the next couple weeks, and we'll see you guys later.